Okay, so now the base layer has dried. So when I was recording, I finished around about 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's dried now, it's the next morning. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to incorporate the portrait component. So essentially what I'm gonna do is just start putting in some draft sketches across the canvas. So you can begin with pencil, use pencil to give a rough outline before you actually sort of make anything sort of permanent on there. And if you want to, you can sort of roll in a bit of charcoal to sort of start to bring out a bit more of the line, so you can actually get a bit more clarity in regards to the layout of where the portrait's going to be. Now, if you've got your sort of your pre-sketches, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to sort of work out how you lay it out on the canvas. So have them handy, and also if you do have sort of an image that you are using to give you the tone and more of the depth, but use both of those components to start to map it out. Then once we've done that, we're going to start to paint the outline of it and then start to fill it in. So the colors that we're going to be using when we start to fill in and actually start to give the face more features and depth and color, we're going to use a skin tone flesh color. You can use a Naples yellow as well, that's fine, as I pointed out before at the beginning. We will be blending in white, and also we'll mix in the black and the red for sort of darker areas. Remember to mix your red with the black so you don't get too much of that sharpness in the black. And when we have that base sketched down, what we're going to do is we're going to start to fill it in to give it more depth, color, form and energy. So before we begin, let's have a mighty mind moment. Now, what tends to happen here sometimes is that you can get a little intimidated, particularly if you're not sort of in a routine of doing this. So what I suggest that you do is just address your thinking for a minute. So it's just a simple thing of maybe 30 seconds or 1 minute, actually really start to imagine yourself producing what you ultimately want to produce. I know it might sound a little bit woo-woo, but it does actually help, just even if you have to close your eyes, but just start to grasp that image or that belief, or at least it will create that belief that you can actually start to make it work on the canvas. So it only takes about 30 seconds, 1 minute. Just stop yourself now and then and really visualize yourself doing it. A really good thing is just to play it over a couple of times in your mind. Even if you have to walk back and forward from the canvas, that's fine. Remember, there's no time schedule in doing this. What it is just making sure that you're in that zone. So if you don't feel comfortable, if you feel a little bit irritated about it, if you feel like you're not making that progress, then stop and just visualize what is the end result, what is it you're trying to achieve, and play it in your mind and actually see yourself doing it. And do that a couple of times, back and forth if you have to sort of get that movement and sort of give you that confidence without discouragement. So let's get into it.
Now, I should mention that it doesn't really matter how the orientation of your canvas is. You can have it upside down, the other way around, sideways if you want to. I've picked this format because it suits the design that I'm trying to go for, so you can copy the same if you want to. Now, the main principle here is just to flush out the base design, the sketch, and just get it on the canvas. Now, you can rub back if you need to, if you make mistakes, but just focus on getting it out and getting the main structure in proportion. That's what you're working at, getting everything in proportion and getting that base sketch layer down, whether it's with a charcoal, whether it's with a pencil, and then we can start to incorporate the paint as soon as we've got all that outlaid on the canvas.
One thing that you can do if you're using charcoal is that it gives you the ability to sort of rub back if you do make mistakes. So you can rub it back and it won't interfere too much with the painting. So for example, it kind of just like dusts off, so it allows you to rework it and remove or shape it around wherever you need it. So yeah, don't forget that. You can actually use just moisten, put a bit of moisture in the cloth as well, and that will simply just wipe off. So just a little tip for you. Okay, so I've kind of got the rough draft in terms of the sketching on the canvas. So what I'm going to do now is actually start to get a bit more depth or darker outline, and I'm going to start using the paint. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mix up some of your black with your red. Remember, just sort of dull down that black a little bit, take the sharpness out of it, and we'll just get some outlines, and we'll start working on the eye area, and we'll work outwards. So we'll start to get in as much detail as we can, and we'll incorporate a little bit of color along the way just to give ourselves a bit of definition. But yeah, if you grab your paints and start to get your smaller brush, because we'll just do the sort of the detail. It's just going to be a rough approach. It's not going to be too sort of in depth in terms of trying to get specifically everything that we want. But what we're going to do is start to get the rough outline so we can just start building outwards. Okay, let's do it.
To begin with, all we're really doing is using our paint to go over this base sketch that we've put down. But we want to start to fill in key areas like your around the eyes. We obviously want to put in the darker areas and start to color in with the darker components over the top of the sketch. The main importance of this part is to get more density, more design, but to get more traction on the canvas, because the charcoal will give us so much in terms of mapping it out and giving us a base sketch, but now the paint will really start to bring it forward and really start to give it more depth. It's a good idea to spend a bit of time mapping it out with the paint, just with your darker color for the time being. Just use that one tone right around and draw out the contour of the face through the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and get all the darker elements flushed in. Because with that base blueprint down, then we can really start to take off in terms of incorporating other color tones, or the shading and different dynamics in terms of all the abstract components that we want to put into it. That's where it gets really exciting, when we can start to build upon that. But we do need this base foundation in first, which is what I'm doing. So I'm spending a bit of time with the eyes. Not that there's too much detail there, it's just that I want to make sure that I've got the proportion right in terms of one eye being a safe distance from the other. I also want to make sure that the mouth and the nose are lined up correctly. So as I mentioned, it's about getting all that proportion right, the distance between each feature of the face. That's what matters the most. Making sure that the level of your ears match across the other side to the other ear, and not sitting too high above the eye on the side of the head. So you can see that I'll spend a bit of time just working around this, just making sure that I'm getting those details flushed in with the blacker color on the paint. I know once I've got this part of it down, it's going to start to install a bit more confidence in terms of us being able to run away with the other color paints that we're going to incorporate once all this is mapped out. Another good idea is to step back from the canvas, just so that you can start to get a better judgment in terms of your proportion on the canvas. So stand back a few meters from the canvas if you've got the ability to do so, because it will really make a difference in terms of how you can see what's on the canvas. Because when you're standing a foot away from it, sometimes it can be quite distorted in terms of how you've got things structured in terms of space. You know, making sure that the eyes are evenly dispersed between each other and your nose is in proportion. So take advantage of being able to step back and really have a good look. It will really make a difference. And don't be afraid to go over areas. If you've cut like the chin too short, you know, go back over it and work it in. You know, if the neck's too short, then you can remold it. You can change things around. The idea is to get the full head in. So we've got definition there on the page. Don't forget to rely heavily on your photo guide or your drawing that you're basing this one on, your image of the portrait that you have. So use that to your best advantage in terms of mapping things out, and copy a lot of it as much as you can. And that way it will give you a lot of depth in terms of the characteristics of what you're trying to get from that picture onto the canvas. Same principle here with your mouth. just map all that out. It doesn't really matter in terms of what color we're incorporating here at the moment. It's just a matter of getting on the canvas and making it really stand out so it's defined, so we know what areas we can start to focus on. You're essentially just drawing with a big paintbrush, and that's pretty much the goal at this stage, is to get everything down in terms of the key features on the face. Around the nose, the darker areas under the nose, of course, fill in those shade areas.